Shadowverse Worlds Beyond First Expansion Infinity Evolved has been out for almost a week, and I've been playing a ton of this game, rubber banding around between Sapphire and Diamond groups as I climb my way up the ladder and experiment with lots of different things. Today's tier list is going to be using a little bit different format than you might be used to. Rather than ranking cards S through F, I'm going to hopefully group them in a way that's maybe a little bit more useful for those of you at home to figure out your crafting priorities with your valuable vials as you wade your way into this expansion. To give a quick breakdown on these, the buy these category is going to largely be reserved for neutral cards that I think are excellent in a lot of decks that are very safe crafts for everyone, regardless of what you're looking to play. These class staples are also very safe crafts with the asterisk that they're for specific classes. So if you want to be playing a class, they're probably worth picking up. Playable cards are ones that are definitely going to go into decks if you have them, but I think they're lower crafting priority than what I would call a class staple, because you can probably substitute them out without hurting the power level of your deck nearly as much. The niche cards are ones that are playable in a specific archetype for a class, but they're not as widely applicable everywhere. And the bad cards, I think, are unfortunately pretty self-explanatory. To get a really easy one out of the way here to start, Odin is the headliner of the buy these category. This 7 play point card in our latest expansion has been a 2 and 3 of in so many different deck lists that I've been playing him in. Initially, people thought, myself included, that he was just going to be useful for clearing out Wilbur without triggering out his last words, but as the metagames developed a little bit and there's been a little bit less Haven, Odin's just been an absolute phenomenal utility card to play in a lot of spots. Having a card that can answer a big threat on the opponent's side of the board without using up one of your evolutions is so valuable, and Odin does exactly that. Our other card in the buy this category is our 7-drop neutral from the previous expansion. Olivia is still fantastic. Really love her in a variety of things. She goes in slightly less than Odin, I would say, because you need to have super evolutions available for her typically, but still very, very widely applicable and good card to pick up if you didn't open her from the first set. I'm just going to go right along here, starting with Burnite and working our way down now. Burnite is definitely a class staple. The Dragoncraft deck is very happy to have her. She not only can sweep the board and stabilize things for you in the Dragoncraft deck, but her Super Evolution emblem is critical for Dragoncraft to be able to run down opponents on the other side of the board as the games tick and go long. Dimensional Climb. Easy class staple here for the Runecraft stuff. The best Runecraft deck in the game right now, and I would argue the only playable Runecraft deck at the moment is Declimb, and you want 3 copies there. Kuon, very similarly. I think Kuon's actually more flexible than Dimensional Climb. If there's a world where there's a second Runecraft deck in existence, Kuon probably still goes into that as well, and he's very, very powerful. You know, the text on these cards is small. We're gonna learn that I don't know the names of all of them. So our new puppet lady is a card that I've been kind of split on. I think she's definitely playable, but I'm skeptical that you need to have her in order to play with puppets. As I was playing puppets, it felt like I wasn't sure she was actually meaningfully better than the silver 5-drop that creates 3 puppets in your hand. She can kill smaller things without an evolution, but there's a very size limitation to what she can kill. So while she's fine, I don't think she's necessarily a staple for all of those decks. Orcus, arguably one of the generically best cards in Shadowverse still as we head on into the second expansion. You're playing 3 of her in every Portalcraft deck, absolutely. The Twin Calamities. I'm honestly kind of torn on this card. I think a lot of people would tell you it should just be a class staple, but it definitely doesn't play inside of the aggressive shell. And if I'm being honest, inside of the mid-rangey shell, I've been kind of whelmed by this card. It's definitely playable, and it's fine if you really love the effect, but it is not quite going in everywhere. Janine, I think Havencraft as a whole is still in a kind of medium spot. Definitely got better. I don't think I would call it the worst class in our second expansion like it was in the first. But Janine definitely goes in every single Haven deck as a 3 of right now for sure. Realmia. I think Realmia is just playable. I think she obviously only goes in the artifacts deck for Portalcraft, but even inside of the Artifacts Portalcraft deck, she's not always a 3 of. She's very regularly sees play as a 2, but even in the deck where she's optimized for, you're not maxing out on her typically. Rose Queen. My heart wants to put Rose Queen here. My head said she's probably still belongs here. So I think there's a chance that Forestcraft is unfortunately taking the title of worst class in our first expansion, taking that away from Haven. And as I've experimented with a lot of Forestcraft decks, I've still felt like Rose Queen is only unnecessary at the top end. Like, even in the games where she's most optimal, it's hard to find a window to play her and not die before you can combo kill your opponent. And even in the games where you have a window to play her, you don't always have enough 1 energy cards to actually convert into bolts to kill your opponent with. Medusa. I think I would put Medusa in class staple for the Abysscraft. She is obviously a staple inside of all of the more mid-rangey and control shells, and even a handful of the aggressive decks have top end some of her as just a way to like clean things up, because if they don't kill her on the spot, she ends the game right away the following turn. I think I'm gonna put our amulet-centric friend here inside of Nietzsche. He doesn't see any play inside of the Ward Haven craft, but he was a card that you wanted inside of the amulet-centric builds, and it's not clear to me that those builds are necessarily unplayable now. Garyu. I think I'm going to put Garyu in just the playable category. I've been a big fan of him inside of the Dragon Ramp shells I've been playing, and I think he's quite good, but I don't think he's necessary for that archetype to be functional, and you have a lot of decent options for him. He's less important than something like a Burnite that's providing you with a way to consistently clean the board out. Gildaria. I think, and this might be a strong take, but I actually think Gildaria might be in contention with Orcus for currently best individual card in Shadowverse Worlds Beyond. She is easily the best card in Swordcraft, I think. Getting a free super evolution is so incredibly powerful. She sweeps the board. She just she slices, she dices, she pressures, she cleans up. She really just does it all. Right behind you, Anne. All right, the twins go up here with Kuon and Dimensional Climb. Even if you're trying to be adorable playing dedicated Dirtcraft stuff, I think you want 2 to 3 copies of the twins in it. Card is very, very good. The Lady of the Woods. I think I'm gonna slide her into Nietzsche. I think previously I would have considered her kind of bad. With our latest expansion, she does at least seem like she has a role inside of the dedicated fairy aggressive deck, which is nice, but I think Nietzsche there, because there's definitely a number of Forestcraft decks that aren't interested in playing her. Owlbear. Um, I think for me in this latest expansion, I think Owlbear's just in the playable category. My personal preferred Swordcraft deck actually isn't playing any copies of Owlbear. And while there's no denying he's this, I can threaten ending the game on the spot, there is both a lot more ward with 4+ toughness in this newest expansion, which really hurts Owlbear's closing power when there's ward things that his 3 damage trigger can't kill. And if you're not in a spot where you're ready for Owlbear to be killing your opponent, he's generally speaking worse than most of the other 5, 6, 7s, and 8s that Swordcraft can be playing. Well, he's your best possible card when he kills them, obviously. Whenever you're in a spot that isn't literally killing them dead with your 9 energy enhanced Owlbear, he is coming up quite a bit short compared to the other options, I think. Agave. I honestly think this is probably the best slash most important Abyss Legendary in the game right now. It is a card that interacts with the board, meaning that control decks want to play it. And when you evolve it, it pressures both players' life total, which means aggressive decks want to be playing it as well. If you are an Abysscraft gamer, this is one of the best cards you could spend your resources on. Eurus. I've been really whelmed by this card in general. I would not be surprised if there's like some more hard controlling sword build that gets figured out that really wants him. So I think I'm going to put him in niche rather than bad. I think while he prevents himself from being removed from the board by evolution, since he stops things from attacking the turn they come in, the fact that Odin is up here in the buy these category and there's just so many decks playing Odin right now really hurts the effect of this card a lot. Yudi. I think Yudi is like a textbook example of a card I want to have in the playable category here. I think she's best in slot 3-drop, regardless of what Portalcraft deck you're playing. But at the same time, she's just a meat and potatoes style card where she's not really defining what your deck is doing. She's just like helping you have early game consistency. And if you needed to budget or replace her with something else, you can still do so and play a reasonable game with the rest of your deck. Cerberus. I think if Medusa is up here, Cerberus should probably be up here too. While she's obviously the headlining staple in the mid-range and controlling builds, there's some of the aggressive decks I've seen that try and go up a little bit bigger into her too. She has some diminishing returns with her super evolution when you have things like bats in your graveyard that can be bringing back, but she really kind of does it all. She helps you stabilize the board. She pushes damage with her puppet that has the last breath to deal damage, so does a good range of things. For our aggressive dragon lady, I think she slots here into playable with Garyu. The bigger rampy builds of dragons have no interest in playing her, but she's a pretty staple top end in the lower to the ground builds. But I also think you could probably get away playing that deck budget without her. Norman's a card that's really looked impressive. I think he's up there for one of the better cards in this expansion overall, along with Gildaria. The big thing that surprised me about Norman is how clean and powerful he has looked in a world where you're not just playing dedicated Earthright. A lot of the folks playing Runecraft stuff are still mixing him in when they're using things like Dimensional Climb, just because his ability to drop down and gain you 8 is really, really good. Yeah, Runecraft is Healcraft in part because of Norman's ability to jump you up 8 in a single turn. Agree. Aether. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna group Aether and Wilbear together here, and I think they both just belong inside the playable grouping. I think it is unclear to me that the Havencraft Wards deck is necessarily the best way to be playing that class still in this new expansion. It was like really popular and people were hyped about this new busted thing on the first 2 days of the expansion, but I think it's really clear as the metagame has developed more that while that deck's really good draws are really good, they're kind of average, mid-tier, below average draws really come up short compared to a lot of other things in the metagame. So if you hyper focus on the games where you go Wilbur on 6, Aether on 7, Janine on 8, the deck literally feels unstoppable, but you just don't get to do that in every one of your games. Karula. Karula is, I think he's better than Realmia. He obviously doesn't go inside of puppets because he's an artifact only card, but I feel like he probably, I think there's a chance he belongs up here, but maybe just the fact that he doesn't go in puppets means that he's supposed to just be inside of playable. He's definitely a very powerful card, but if you're not interested in playing artifacts, he's not a card worth spending resources on. So I think we go into here just because it's very clear he doesn't belong in puppets. Amelia is definitely a we're gonna have to zoom out here a little bit as we get a second row. Amelia is definitely a class staple. She is very, very powerful, provides card advantage for you, allows you to find your other bigger bombs more consistently, can put a barrier across your board, making it very difficult for you to crack open. She's stellar. Our feet lady, Phil Lennon. She is easily a class staple. I think she slices, she dices, she's a 2/2 you could play on curve. She cleans up things in the mid to late game with her evolution. She stops the dimensional climb deck from like completely railing you on its combo turn by making their cards cost some more. I like her a lot. This one's close. I'm gonna be honest. I think this card might be Rose Queen level bait. Just like thinking about all the other options inside of Runecraft, it's so hard to justify playing this card over literally any of the other powerful options. I don't know. Maybe she belongs here just because I think you could play her and not be completely embarrassed by it. But I really think the only compelling reason to play this card is if you like the card and not for power level. I think she's slow and clunky. And the payoff that you get for her versus like what Norman's giving you and other things like that is just not really worthwhile. Coyotes. I think he belongs in niche. He's obviously fine. And he sees play inside of the dimensional climb deck. But that's really the only place he belongs. And you only really want one copy of him. And you're not really going to play too much more of that. Salfa. I think she definitely belongs up here with Janine for the class staple. I think basically every deck playing Haven right now probably wants copies of Salfa. She helps stabilize your life total. She helps clean the board up. She's a ward unit. Really just does it all. This is another one where I'm right in between these. So I'm gonna be honest. I haven't played with or against this card yet. I have copies of her, and I've like looked at her every time I put Forest Craft together, and then I've looked at all the other options, and I'm just like, I just can't come up with a compelling reason to play this card over Odin and over Olivia and over all these other cards. I think I'm gonna put her in bad. I can't think of a compel. Maybe someday I'm gonna play her and I'm gonna be like, wow, we were all wrong about this card. But I can't think of a compelling theory craft reason to engage with her, and nobody's played her against me. It's so clunky. Abataz. I'm gonna put Abataz in niche. I think there's a world where there's a really aggressive forest craft deck out there with fairies, and he's really impressive when he comes down on 3 as like a 5/5 or god forbid a 6/6 with the absolute best possible. But outside of his high rolls, he's only okay. Grimmer is a quintessential, very playable card. It's a neutral card, so I think it's a fine card to spend resources on if you think you're gonna play it in a few different spots, but I also don't think it's the make or break card in any of the decks that you're playing. Fenny. A couple of people have thought some of my placements have been contentious so far, but I think I bet this is the one that I'm gonna get the most flack on. I think I'm gonna put her in niche. I think there's an argument that she's bait in general. I think this is the type of card that people have a hard time evaluating because they only remember the high rolls. And while the high rolls look really impressive, the other games where you just like have this 8-drop 4/4 that you just didn't have a window to play and you died is just like, it's real clunky. Titania, I think she's gonna earn one of the highest ratings of a forest craft card here today, and I'm gonna slot her into playable. I think is where she ends up at. I think most forest craft decks are probably happy to have a flow of extra fairies. She evolves to be a very unique type of removal that can even be disruptive to things like opposing Cerberus. Yeah, the forest craft legendaries really ain't it, and she's probably the best among them. The cat that keeps on coming back. I think he's solidly inside of playable. There's aggressive shells that are happy to have him, but not a defining card by any means. And last but certainly not least, I think this is actually the second most important card inside of Abysscraft. I think similar to Aragave here, however his name is pronounced. She has play inside of the aggressive cores. She has play inside of the more controlling cores, and she's just a really good use of your pickup and your resources. Final cursory glance. Does Jeff at the end agree with Jeff over the course of the rest of it? Things that are close. Burnite could be close. I think you could make a compelling argument that Burnite only sees play in the ramp build of Dragon, and that because there's aggressive builds of Dragon, perhaps she should only be down here. I think I'm gonna demote Burnite to playable. And I feel like Medusa and Cerberus could go either way as well. They straddle that line real close because these two are seeing play inside of everything. And these two I think you could argue these two belong here. These ones are close for me. I think there's probably good Abyss decks that don't play either of these, and I think these cards are better than the twins on average, but probably not so much better that they belong up here over this. If you're just joining us, one thing I want to make it really clear, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of really indignant YouTube comments that don't understand this, but I want to make it clear that outside of this category that's explicitly called bad, these top 4 groupings are not saying these cards are more powerful than these cards. The goal of this list is not to communicate absolute power level so much as it is hopefully to help guide people into getting an idea of how they should spend their resources based on the classes they like playing. So for example, if you're someone who wants to play Swordcraft, I would tell you the most important legendary card for Swordcraft is the one here in class staple, Gildaria. Likewise, you're a Portalcraft enjoyer, you're thinking, how do I spend my resources? Orcus is the best Portalcraft card to be playing. I think a number of cards in both the playable and even niche category can be quite strong in the right context. However, they are a lower priority for people to spend resources on if they're looking to flesh out the core of their collection to build decks with more minimal resources. As always, I appreciate everybody that made it all the way through to the end of this YouTube video, and shout out to everybody that watched it while we recorded it on the live stream. I would love to hear in the comments down below which things you think I missed on, with the caveat that we gave there that this is not purely about power level. Remember, if you're new to the channel, make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and ring that bell so you don't miss any of the upcoming daily Shadowverse content that we're pumping out here in Hoaglandia, Shadowverse Worlds Beyond, and smash the like button on this video as well.